You were born with individual strengths and a unique purpose. Don't let fears, false beliefs, or life's happenings diminish your influence. It's time to live and lead for impact. Host Kirsten Ross, expert of transformation, will help you defeat the drama and overcome the trauma that can stop you in your tracks. You'll gain focus, find confidence, and take bold action. Unleash passionate, purposeful you. Let's go.
Welcome to Live and Lead for Impact. I'm Kirsten Ross, your host, and this is episode number 151. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have an amazing guest. His name is Kevin Eastman. He was in the U.S. Airforce with over 20 years of service, including stints as a drill instructor and a recruiter, and author of the book, Don't Gamble on Life Improvement Until You Shift the Odds. Kevin has faced many obstacles and been fortunate enough to overcome them. Now he's on a mission to assist others in doing the same. By simplifying those obstacles, he believes the simpler things are made to appear, the easier they are to understand and subsequently overcome. So thank you so much, Kevin, for being with me today, and I can't wait to hear some of your strategies.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so let's just dive in and tell me, what are the life experiences? I know you've been through some stuff, some challenges. So what are some of those life experiences that have motivated you to make your unique impact?
Well, there's been a few things that have motivated me to do what I do. Most importantly was I watched many people make the same mistakes I was making and gone through some of the same experience I have gone through. So I know what a lot of those feel like. And my thinking is, if I can alleviate the burden of somebody else going through that by sharing what I know, then I'm on the right track. So that kind of motivates me to make my impact on the world that we have today. My small little piece in helping society get better.
So what are some of those experiences that you had?
Well, I mean, I've been through failed relationships. I've been through low self-esteem. I've been through just banging my head against the wall, figuring out why life wasn't going the way that I wanted it to go. And it took me a while to figure that out. And thanks to a lot of mentoring, it actually helped me out in figuring out why things were not going the way that it was going.
Okay. So what impact is it that you're now working to make?
Well, I believe that each person is created for purpose. Some people have a huge impact on a lot of people, while others have a smaller impact on a few people. For me, in a strange way, I'm convinced that my purpose is to help people overcome the obstacles they're facing. As you said in the intro, I like simplifying situations to make them easier to understand. And I think the simpler things are to understand, the easier they are to overcome. And what I found is a lot of the obstacles that are actually in our way, we actually put there ourselves. And that's a hard thing to face. But when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, I tell people when I talk to groups, obstacles only as large or as small as you make them in your own head.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I often tell people a lot of the challenges you're experiencing, you have created and can change. That's either the good news or the bad news, depending on how you look at it.
Exactly. Perception is a key in how we react to things.
Yes. So what are some of the obstacles that you've helped people simplify? Just give a few
Well,
examples.
you look at things. If you a lot of times what we do is our perception dictates the magnitude of our reaction to a situation. I know in my book I use an example of with a bowling ball, and what I say is if you look at the way, let's say for example, a person balls up a piece of paper and throws it at you. Your natural reaction is to swat it out of the way without even thinking about it. And then if you take that situation again, and instead of paper ball, you substitute a bowling ball, your reaction is going to be much different because of how you viewed the bowling ball from hitting you. So to
Mm-hmm.
So and if you're going to have a different reaction, even though from a scientific standpoint the action is the same. You're trying to prevent an object from hitting you. So it all depends on how you see a situation that will dictate how you react to it. And that's what I try to do when I talk with people in a mentoring role, in a coaching role, when I'm doing speeches to groups. I try to get them to see things as they are instead of how we want them to be. Does
Great.
that make sense?
It does. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I like that. And I was just going to ask, in what ways are you working to make your impact? And so I heard just a second ago coaching, mentoring, speaking, and you've written this book, Don't
Yes.
Gamble on Life Improvement Until You Shift the Odds. So tell me in your own words, what kind of coaching are you providing? How are you mentoring people? Share
Well,
a
I
little
do.
bit.
I do a lot of mentoring through my fraternity. We mentor young people because I think um, we owe it to the younger generations to teach them the things we were taught. And where the disconnect comes is when we assume that people already know that information, and people end up stumbling along the lines. I think a person is never too old to even have a mentor. I got a mentor that I latched onto in my 30s. So mentoring is not just for young people; it's for some older people as well. So I keep that in mind. And one of the things I always tell people when I talk to them is it's not too late. You're not too old. You,
Yes.
you can always learn something from anybody you meet. You either learn what to do or you learn what not to do.
Right, right. That's like the some people bring joy when they enter a room and others bring the joy when they leave, right? So it just
Exactly,
depends. Yes.
exactly.
Yeah. And some people are modeling behavior to exhibit, and others are giving us things that we don't want to do.
Exactly.
So what about your coaching? Do you do individual coaching, group coaching?
Well, for the most part, it's been group coaching along with the mentoring program that I have through my fraternity. We have a group of young men that we meet with periodically, about once a month, and give them tidbits on how to dress for success or changing their mindset. Those types of things because I'm in an urban area, so we have to deal with law enforcement, how to conduct yourself when you're doing law, when you're dealing with law enforcement, when you're dealing with
Mm,
attorneys. Speaking business language, we do a lot of different things in that. So we're trying to give the young men that we talk to the tools that they need to be successful adults.
that's great. Such important information. And you're right. Sometimes we assume that people are already going to have those skills or that knowledge, but there are gaps very
Right.
often. And
Right.
better to learn them beforehand than on the fly when you're in a situation.
Exactly.
Yes, yes. So, what have been some of the biggest internal or external challenges that you've had to overcome, and how did you overcome them?
Well, for me personally, the biggest challenge that I've encountered along the way was learning how to get out of my own way, and that was a tough one. Like I said earlier, it took a lot of banging my head against the wall to figure out that most of the obstacles I was facing, I had put there myself. So, learning to shift my thinking was a major factor in overcoming that challenge. I think what motivated me most to overcome the challenge was I just simply got tired of running into the wall, wondering why the wall wasn't moving.
Right, right.
So it was one of those things where, okay, the wall's not going to move. So the only alternative I have is to change what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. And changing your perception of the wall. Like, let's not be
Exactly.
frustrated. It is what it is. That thing's not going anywhere. So now what are you going to
Exactly.
do about it? Yes, yes.
Right.
So, how do you stay motivated and moving during tough times?
Well, to keep me motivated, I have a simple philosophy. It can get tough at times, but one of the things that I keep in mind is the journey has been put into place so that you'll appreciate the destination more when you arrive. Everybody encounters obstacles, but how we see those obstacles will determine if we succeed or fail at a task we attempt to complete. I make it a point to remember that when I set a goal, to keep my mind on the goal. As a retired member of the U.S. Air Force, I was trained to have the mindset that the mission needs to be completed regardless of the number or difficulties of the obstacle standing between me and the goal. So I believe that has a lot to do with getting me through many of the rough times I've encountered throughout my journey.
I like that. And continuing to keep those obstacles as small as possible and creative problem solving to work through them or around them.
Exactly.
Don't get caught up. Yes.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I write a passage in the book that says you in order to overcome an obstacle, you have to, in order to get to a goal, is what I say, you have to be willing to go over, under, around, or even through any obstacle that happens to be standing in your way.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And I find myself saying, like, try to make that thing small and then tuck it to the side. So often I find people want to just focus on that. Or how many times do you encounter someone who, I call it twirling, like we either get caught up in other people's twirling, like when they're having kind of an adult level temper tantrum kind of thing, or in our own mind, the twirling that can happen when we're only focused on, I call it kitchen sinking. Here's the obstacle. Here's an obstacle. Here's an obstacle. And they're looking at each individual one. It's like, step back, slow down.
Well, the funny thing is, and I'm working on a second book, actually.
Oh, great.
And one of the things that I've found, that a lot of people like to put their focus on the what, and they forget about the why.
Yes.
And it's easy to say that because the what is an easy target. It's right there. You can see it. You can hear it. There's no doubt that it happened. But the figuring out why the what is occurring is the hard part for a lot of people, because figuring out why may mean finding out that your actions actually made the what occur.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing I find, and I know you've seen this too, there's a bunch of whats, right? And again, like you said, yeah, they're coming at us. They're going to be there. We have to focus when emergencies happen or things go awry. There's a challenge in front of us. It does take our focus.
Sure.
But if you're only looking at each individual thing as if it's in isolation, it's that old saying, can't see the forest for the trees. So like a tree pops up, you deal with it. A tree pops up, you deal with it. But exactly. At some point, you got to step back and saying, there's an umbrella thing creating all these trees.
Exactly.
And so instead of dealing with each one individually, you need to look. I remember I was with a client one time. He was an older man, and he kept looking at the trees. And I found this, and it was very pretty, actually, but it didn't really fit his persona, but it was
Sure.
this beautiful vase. It was actually a basket. I remember it was crystal, and I stuck it in the center of his conference room table in his office. And I said, every one of these challenges, picture yourself throwing it into this, because they all are emanating from the same thing that needs to be addressed.
Right.
And it helps somewhat.
Well, that's what people tend to do, from my experience. A lot of us are programmed, if you will, to react to our emotions instead of to the situation as it sits. And that's the overall message of my book. Try to shift the way you see things, and you will make a more informed decision. What we end up doing is we react to the emotion because that's the immediate need. I want that to subside, and I want it to subside right now.
Yeah, in this instant gratification world, that's even more important right now.
Right. And what we end up doing is we fix the emotion and we're fine. But when we realize the emotion has subsided, the situation is still what it is, and we haven't fixed it. So we go right back to the drawing board.
Right. Exactly. Right. Yep. There's that one little thing again. There's that one little thing again. There's that one little thing again.
Exactly.
Can we step back and just stop that one little thing from happening? Yes. Okay. So, obviously we're on the same page about all that. I love that. What words of wisdom do you have for others who want to make their important impact in the world?
Well, I think for me, the one of the most profound statements that I actually wrote in my book, it says a person's reputation or legacy, how they're viewed or remembered, isn't defined by their actions, but by their actions that have the biggest impact on the people they interact with.
Mm.
I believe that that is an absolute fact, and it's why I try to add value to the life of everyone I come into contact with, because I failed many times at many things to correct things I didn't like in my life. However, once I ran into the one mentor that made me challenge the way I thought, I started getting over that hump. So it only takes that one person to pique your curiosity and spur a change in your mindset for you to take a different course in life. And that's one of the things that I try to I try to impart when I talk with people, is to figure out what it is that you're doing that's making the biggest impact on people that interact with you, because you never know where your inspiration is going to come from. And mine came from a mentor out of nowhere. I latched on to him, and he put me on he put me on the course I never saw myself on.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So I think there's a message in there underlying of be open to hearing from others. You never know when those little nuggets are going to show up
Absolutely.
that might put you on this different path that you didn't even anticipate. And don't you also see too that sometimes people are making an impact and they don't even realize it?
Well, a lot of people don't. They're not there to make an impact. You know, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, you never know where your inspiration is going to come from. I drew a lot of the information in my book from just people that I interacted with in everyday life. Those messages didn't occur to me until I got much older. You know, a lot of my parents gave me a lot of information that, but being 12, 13, 14 years old, my parents were idiots.
Right. You knew so
you know
much back then.
and it wasn't until I turned 24 that I
Mm-hmm.
figured out, hey, my parents are not stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually helped me as I was writing the book. It was kind of therapeutic for me in a way, because I ended up recalling a lot of the information that I had been taught but ignored throughout the years, and now it's all coming to fruition now.
Mm-hmm. So it's like seeds that someone else planted for you
Right.
years ago, which sometimes when we are impact makers as well, we have to realize that our seeds might not come to fruition for a while, but at
Right.
least we're kind of throwing them out there.
I heard something interesting. It was I can't remember who said it, but it went along the lines of, if you think about a fruit tree, the last thing you see on a fruit tree is the fruit.
Mm.
The last thing to develop on a fruit tree is the fruit. So
Mm-hmm. Right. And it can be a long time in the making.
right,
And at that point, you're not focused on the seed at all.
exactly.
But that was an important part of the outcome.
Sure.
Yes, yes. Wow. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom and your inspiration that you're sharing with others today. And it sounds like people really need to get in touch with you if they're in need of overcoming some challenges that might be self made. So I'm going to encourage everyone to head over to today's show notes, go to defeatthedrama.com. Click on the podcast tab and go to episode 151. You will find the link to Kevin's website there. It is kevineastman.com. So KEVINE and then Eastman, EASTMAN.com. You'll find that link there, and I encourage you to reach out to him and go check out his book, Don't Gamble on Life Improvement Until You Shift the Odds. And where can they find that book?
Oh, my book is available direct through my website. It's available on Amazon. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free. And it's also on Barnes and Noble as well.
Perfect, perfect. So go get that book. It sounds like one that is very helpful for anyone working to make their own impact in the world. So thank you, Kevin, so much for being with me today and for sharing your words of wisdom and for the major impact that you're out there making in this world.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right. And everyone, get out there and make your important impact. Remember, the world is waiting for your unique impact. You were put on this earth with a purpose. Get out there and make your impact and make it a great day.